10 days prior to our anniversary, I found a signed Texas lease with his name on it. He was moving without a word to me. It's late as I'm telling you this. My apartment is the sort of quiet that vibrates, like the low hum of the fridge and the tick of the radiator in the corner. I am on my couch with a blanket that I didn't even know I owned last week, TV light flashing color around the room, but with no clue what's on. I've repeated this enough times now that I can still hear the same sound the paper made when I first unfolded it. That crisp little breath of dishonesty exhaling. It was not fireworks the first time I met Evan. It was not a movie. It was a Tuesday night trivia night at a bar that still had their Christmas lights up in March. He was on the team to our right and told the host when she got Tchaikovsky incorrect. That he did so did not irritate me. He was somehow nice about it, as if he merely did not wish for a composer to twice pass away. And then he bumped into me by accident at the bar and said to me, "I'm Evan, I'm sorry, and I'm not always that guy." I enjoyed him because he didn't overdo. He laughed, surprised by the noise. He wore the identical navy crew neck so frequently that I began catching glimpses of it on a chair before I caught sight of him. He always carried gum in his glove and shared with me the last piece of gum before interviewing for jobs because he said that mint made you appear more confident, which isn't accurate, but I took it anyway. We constructed into each other like a song gets stuck in your head. You don't know when it began, but suddenly you know all the lyrics. The building of us was little and meticulous. On Sundays, we'd go to the farmer's market by the stadium just to argue about peaches and plums. I'd always buy the flowers that looked a little broken, like a peony with a torn petal, and he'd tease me about rescuing plants now too. He had this habit of straightening frames in other people's houses, like he could fix the world by tilting it a half inch. He would catch an unfastened button on my jacket and pin it in place with a paperclip until we got home. He stood in front of my fifth graders at the school carnival and let them pie him in the face for the school fundraiser, and I think to myself, this is it. This is the type of man I want to help guide the stupid little days through. He took me to Thanksgiving with his family in Evanston, and his mom made me take leftovers and a Tupperware that was actually superior to any dish I owned. His sister bullied him about how picky he was about coffee, and I had that warm amber glow of potential, of being in rooms where you're already known. We didn't mention the big F future in front of one another as if we were afraid to frighten it away, but we used it casually. Next summer, we should head up to Door County. Your cousin's wedding? I'll be your +1 and your emergency snack. We cobbled together a blueprint of what was going to happen without a commitment. The first strange thing was small. He started saying the words, "We'll see," a lot. Like, "You want to go to that new Italian place on Friday? We'll see. My lease is up in August. Shall we be the first to try out? We'll see." He'd say it with this little smile like he was privy to something, and I caught myself thinking that maybe he was scheming something. Maybe he was going to do something huge and beautiful, such as one of those flash mob engagements that you pretend to hate, but actually bookmark under your favorites. Then other things. He started sleeping over less. He didn't completely stop, he just thinned out. A week would pass oddly, and I'd discover that I had a carton of milk full that didn't expire before it got drunk. He'd tell you that he had to dash back to his apartment for something he'd left behind. Chargers, a sweater, his toothbrush, 3 times. He began taking calls in the hallway, the type you do when you're fighting with a customer service person and you don't want the other party to listen to the worst of you. Except when he came back, he wasn't annoyed. He looked focused. We were at Target on a Saturday afternoon, and I was taunting him because he had packing tape, bubble wrap, and a label maker in his shopping cart. Getting real cozy, I said to him. "Just mailing some stuff to my cousin," he said. He did not look at me when he said it. Evan was a 5-second lag kind of liar, the gap where the truth would usually reside. And yet, when we were together, he was him. He was the man who showed up with a chocolate croissant on a crummy day and heated it for 5 seconds so it sampled freshly out of a Paris oven. He was the guy that laughed this hard at a TikTok of a cat struggling to jump onto a fridge we had to watch it 18 times. You don't end someone when they're being exactly who they've always been. So each time my stomach pulled, I braided it tighter and called it patience. I noticed piles of fresh notebooks on his kitchen counter, each of them with a title. Q2 goals, budget, stuff to sell. Made sense. He was a planner. He once color-coded a road trip to Michigan. I noticed that he had an email folder titled Relocation, and I laughed because I thought, who makes folders for spam? Because I don't wish to get a life-ruining word when I'm hanging on your couch with my knees tucked under your sweater. I'm saying, you're in your body before you're in your head. It was one night, and he slept on my couch after we had seen this awful documentary of UFOs. He slept, face buried in the arm like a kid. I got up to drape a throw blanket over him, and with it, his phone lit up with the calendar alert, movers. June 15th. The word was so sharp it could have been anything. I resigned myself back into bed and told myself maybe his sister was moving. Maybe he was the dutiful son. You'll see. We'll see. It was the day that I found the lease, and I wasn't even where I was supposed to be in his apartment. I had a late faculty meeting that was canceled, and I figured I'd surprise him with dinner, and that silly handcrafted lemonade he swore was too sweet, but still drank anyway. The apartment was filled with lemon cleaner, and there was nothing on any surface, like the room in a hotel that you lingered in a little too long. His laptop sat on the dinner table, the screensaver rotating through photos he'd taken, cloud reflection in a pool, an armature, spiraling fire escape, my knotted hands inside a scarf. Once you've loved someone, the photographs of them are pages from your own book. I wasn't going to eavesdrop. I swear. I was simply about to place the food down and send him a text of, "Hey, I'm here, let me in," as we always used to do when we were in each other's presence. The envelope had been sitting on the chair. Fattening, official one from a management company. To this day, I can still read the scribbling. Magnolia something. Dallas, Texas. I was paralyzed like when you're in your own home and you hear a creak and you're by yourself. You don't want to make a noise that signals whatever it is that you're really there. I ran my finger along under the flap and drew out the papers. Lease agreement. Tenant, Evan Morrison. Term, 12 months. Move-in date, July 1st. Something inside me moved. Not broke. Moved. Like a picture frame shifting slightly to one side on the nail. I read the lines so many times they were no longer legible. Dallas? He used to job hunt in Austin those days, years ago, telling cowboy boot jokes and bemoaning less ferocious winters. But that was also the time when we'd begun to introduce ourselves as we by mistake. I glanced at the date in the footer. Signed 14 days ago. The room began to lean, just a bit, like a boat that you hadn't known you were on. The front door shut with a click. He entered bearing his messenger bag and his grocery bag and his mouth already forming my name. "Hi," he said, and then stood still as I held up the envelope in my hand. All the breath in the apartment rearranged itself around that moment. I waved the lease in the air like a ticket. "What is this?" His face did this weird thing, surprise, exasperation with himself for not remembering to put it in, exasperation with me for having noticed it. He placed the groceries very slowly, as if he were shelving dynamite. "Lila," he said, in that voice one adopts in an attempt to calm a dog on the verge of making a break for it, "I was going to tell you. Were you going to inform me in advance or later that you disappeared across state lines? It's not like that. How is it then?" My tone ached to hurl everything in the room. He settled back in the back of a chair. "It's a year," he said to me. 12 months, maybe less. It's a rotation. They approached me, and it's a great move for me, and I wanted to be sure it was secure before I said anything to you. I did not want to let you down in case it went through. I gazed. "You rented an apartment." "I know," he said to her. It was sudden. I wanted to get it right in telling you. You hear how they crinkle with the plastic bags. That was all that was heard for longer than it ought to have been. I pictured him searching Texas apartments on Google while I chopped mushrooms for supper. I pictured him rehearsing not saying anything. I pictured that he had rehearsed it so long that he could keep syllables from his mouth like he was allergic. "When are you leaving?" I asked. My head was too light for my body. "In a few weeks," he said, as if he was telling me what time his dentist appointment was. He came towards me, and I stepped away. I didn't know I was going to do that until I did. "Did I do something?" I demanded, because sometimes we wish the problem to be us, because at least then we can solve it. Is this because I requested August? Regarding my lease? Because we can work out." "No," he said, hastily. "No, this is about me." I have to do this for me. Do what? My voice cracked at the end. Practice leaving? Come on, he said, stroking his jaw. Don't make it. Say the thing, I told him, and I caught both of us off guard with how sharp that sounded. Say the thing you've been afraid to say. He breathed. I don't know what we are in a year, he said. I didn't want to commit you to a maybe. It didn't feel right. Fair, I whispered, as if the word itself was bitter. You didn't want to leave me suspended on a maybe, so you cut the rope and never let me in on the fact that I was falling. He closed his eyes. Lila, there is a version of me that screams at him and curses at him. There is a version that storms out and flings the lease. There is a version that collapses on his rug and weeps. The version that showed up was tiny and demure. Do you love me? I asked. His mouth did a flutter that conveyed what the words could not. He replied, I care about you. So much. Care is what you provide to plants. Care is soup bowls and charger cables. Care is not what you uproot states without speech. I put the papers in the envelope because I am the sort of individual who keeps things where I find them, even here. My hands were trembling slightly, and I did not like that he noticed. I have to go, I murmured. I left the takeout on the counter. I forgot the lemonade. The Uber driver wished me a good day, and I said, good, because we are all little liars. I went home and did not turn on the lights. I removed my shoes and put them back on again and removed them again because I had no idea what to do with my body. I didn't cry yet. What I did was sit on the floor beside my coffee table and stared at a water ring that I had never seen before and thought, you didn't know. You didn't know this water was going to leave its mark either. The collapse isn't sensational. It isn't breaking plates on a wall. It's making a peanut butter sandwich and sitting and staring at it until it stales. It's calling your best friend back when she calls and telling her you're fine and then asking, actually, do you have time? And then breaking down in a grocery store parking lot with the seat warmer on. It's typing in Dallas Apartments Magnolia at 2 a.m. and then closing your laptop because you don't want to know anything else about where someone you love will be sleeping. He messaged me the following day. Can we talk? It's not what you think. I didn't reply for 6 hours. When I did, I typed, it's precisely what I think. He arrived anyway. He knocked and, because I am who I am and because this is who I've always been, I opened the door. He stood in my doorway, his hat tucked in his hand like an apology wrapped in cotton. I didn't say anything, he started nervous laughter, because I was scared. I know it sounds stupid. It doesn't sound stupid, I said to him. It sounds reasonable. I didn't want to ask you to go with me, he said, glancing out over me at the bookshelf that we constructed. I know your kids. Your school. This is your town. And I thought, if I ask you and you refuse, then I've guilt-tripped you into something you shouldn't feel bad about. And if I tell you and you try to persuade me to remain, I will despise you. It felt like the only thing to do was just to get through it and then let you know when it was over. Like ripping a Band-Aid, I told him. He shook his head. Like surgery, he said. Cleaner. The way he'd spoken made me realize it all. I'd been a variable he was reducing. A product to be managed. Something to handle. Do you want me to come? I asked, because there was some desperate, abasing part of me that needed to hear him say it. Needed to be chosen in the last 5 minutes of the game. I don't know if I can ask you to do that, he told me. Which isn't no, but isn't yes either. And at last I heard it. He glanced around as though perhaps he might repair this by painting a square. We can do long distance, he said, and we both knew he meant, we can make this break so slow that we can pretend we didn't break up at all. I don't want to be the one you have to say goodbye to in pieces, I said to him. I didn't know that I had that line inside me until it blurted out and fell between us like something solid. He let out a deep breath. He put his arms around me. His old deodorant irritated my throat. I pressed my cheek against his shoulder and let the sadness wash over me in waves as the ceiling fan went around in slow motion above, oblivious. I sensed the manner in which he patted me on the back as a friend leaving an airport welcome home. I was the one to pull back first. He kissed my forehead. It was a sweetness that stung worse than cruelty. The following 2 weeks were a heartbreaking tug. He started taking home his textbooks. He draped his precious hoodie across the back of my chair, and I stared at it as if it would stand up and depart. I attempted to eat. My stomach ached as if someone had pulled the plug. I attended school and told my students that change can be exciting, and then took my lunch into the supply room and hid for 10 minutes because the hypocrisy hurt on my teeth. My friend Maya arrived with guilty pleasure mags and those sticky face masks that give your skin the scent of watermelon. "He's a coward," she said, "as close friends say the things we can't yet." "I don't believe he's a villain," I said to her. "I believe he's a man who can't keep a person in an option without cutting them down." She regarded me as if I'd handed over an equation. "You're being too generous," she said. "You can be generous, and you can still change the locks." He sent a photo on the road on moving day. A shot of his dashboard, the GPS needle pointed south, his hand gripping the wheel. On the screen, ETA 10:43 p.m. "Got through Indiana. You good?" he texted. I stared so long at the message my phone screen went dead. Then I wrote, "I will be." And I blocked his number. You can do that. Nobody prepares you for how wonderful it is not to have to give your heart a tiny paper cut every hour. The following week, I stood in the cereal aisle attempting to select the brand he would have selected. Then I picked the one that suited my taste and did not give him another thought. I went home one afternoon and noticed the sunlight crawl across my living room like a cat that prowls along the base of a couch. I also blared my favorite song too loudly and sang offbeat. I walked along by the lake during sunset and watched teenagers doing skateboard tricks and a father hold a baby really high above his head and overheard a woman on a call uttering, "No, listen, it's not that he's leaving, it's how," and nearly laughed out loud because the universe delights in a cliche even if I do not. I began writing down things that I knew to be true. This was a Pinterest quote factory style read, but it wasn't. It was living. I wrote, "I want to be told the truth in the first draft, not after the edits." I wrote, "I am not a variable to be minimized." I wrote, "I want the kind of love that looks at me when making decisions, big or small." I wrote, "I wish the one who utters, 'Are you coming?' despite knowing the response." I washed his pale blue hoodie and his smell went away, and it just smelled of soap. I stuffed it in a paper bag with the rest of his rejected belongings, chargers, a paperback book with a crushed cover, the measuring tape that he never picked up, and sent it to his sister. I took it to the post office, watching a man grumble about stamps behind me, smiling at the clerk who had a bit of glitter on his cheek, and felt a little piece of me find its way back into alignment. There's a version of this story where we talk again, where he phones and says he was wrong, where I say the same to him. I won't say I waited up for that phone call that night when the room went blue and all of it seemed like him, the sound my neighbor's door made when it shut, the sound of the kettle when it turned off. But the phone didn't ring, and another kind of clarity did. He wasn't going because he didn't love me. He was going because he didn't know how to carry the weight of loving someone and building his own bridge. That's not my moral triumph. That's simply the truth I can live with. And here's the other truth. I don't want to be with someone who believes the only way to keep me safe is to shut me out. I want to be in the room where it all gets decided, even if it hurts me. Particularly if it hurts me. Love is not just deciding on one another in the early mornings. It's waiting in the late afternoons when the leases are on tables and the moving dates are in diaries and you're not quite sure what you'll be in a year, but you still look up and say, "Hey, are we doing this together?" The worst part is that he knew me. He knew what my "I'm fine" implies and that I despise cilantro and that I cry at commercials about dads chopping off their daughter's bike helmet. He just didn't decide to let that knowing root him. He opted for a cleaner surgery. And I opt for something dirty. I opt for the future where someone is brave enough to bleed with me a little. So, I painted one accent wall, the teal I had been keeping bookmarked. I took ceramics in a class and I made a wonky mug that I now proudly and daily use. I cleaned out my playlists one Saturday and removed all of the songs that were reminiscent of him and built new ones for walking fast and walking slow and sobbing in the shower and dancing while chopping onions. I bought a bedside lamp with a dimmer and now I have light under control. I agreed when my neighbor invited me out to see a movie and shared a tub of popcorn with him, and I teared twice exactly. Once during the dog scene and once because I realized I were beneath a blanket in a dark cinema and not dwelling on him for a solid 5 minutes. And I did this thing, this just so odd, stupid thing. I erased his name from my phone and replaced it with my own full proper name for a minute, first and last, like it would appear on letters. I needed to see it. I needed to remember that my life comes to my own doorstep, in my own hand, with my own return address. A postcard arrived 6 weeks later. Dallas skyline, cliché again, blocky handwriting. Hope you're good. Thinking of you. The tacos here are amazing. I tacked it to the fridge with a magnet for 1 day, precisely. It fell down and was put in a drawer then, because I'm not a fridge door he gets to decorate. The mind that counts is the one you're having when you still haven't managed to untangle yourself from reality. I know it can happen to anyone. Maybe it has happened to you. Maybe not state lines, but the subtle way a person can plot to leave you when they still kiss you goodnight and say they'll pick up something for you at the supermarket. I don't have a formula for dodging it. And nothing but this. Note the "we'll see." Note how a name is said when somebody else has done something that will change your life. Note the lean of your body when the envelope unfolds. And then, when you can stand up once more, paint your wall, make your mug, walk by the lake, call your friend, skip the playlist, mail the hoodie, and stare at yourself in the mirror and utter your whole name. I'm okay. I'm not gone like a step in the staircase, up and done, but I'm okay like a wave that accepts that it will keep coming onto the shore. The other night, I left the window open and woke to the sound of rain on the street, and for the first time since that lease became available, my first thought wasn't a replay. It was, oh good, I love that noise. It was like having my house keys back. If you've ever had something like this happen, I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. And if this video has resonated with you in some way, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap that bell.